Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for CMA Overview. My name is Wendy Huckins, and I am the training specialist here at Prime MLS. All of our webinars are conducted in a listen-only mode, and that means everyone is muted. But we encourage your questions, so go ahead and find that chat box, open up that chat box that is located in your Zoom menu options. And then at any point over the next 60 minutes, if you have a question, you can type that question into that chat box. I get your chats in real time, and I'm more than happy to answer chats as they come in. Additionally, I can stick around at the conclusion of the webinar and answer any questions you have at that time as well. All of our Prime MLS webinars are available for all of our Prime MLS customers to attend. And if you are a Vermont or New Hampshire licensee, you can also potentially earn 1 CE for your license renewal in both of those states. You'll just need to make sure that you're logged in to your own device. That's how we track as attendance through the Zoom attendance list. And make sure that you do not miss more than 5 minutes of this 60-minute webinar. If you do both of those requirements, that is how you earn that affidavit for 1 CE for your license renewal in the states of New Hampshire and Vermont. The other states are not currently offering CE credit as our Zoom format does not meet their requirements. I always try to get affidavits emailed out as soon as possible, but with this class happening late in the week, you can expect these affidavits to go out early next week. So I would say by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest of next week, you'll have that affidavit. If you are in the process of renewing your license and you do need me to put a rush on that, after the conclusion of the webinar, just reach out to training@primemls.com and I can put a rush on that affidavit for you. Otherwise, expect these affidavits to be emailed out throughout the week next week. We're going to be talking all about the full CMA program that is available for you to take advantage of in Paragon Professional. A couple of highlights that we'll talk about is that as you are adding your subject properties to Paragon Professional for that full CMA, you can treat those subject properties as a partial or an unpublished listing. Keep adding information to those subject properties, and then when you're ready for it to go live in the system, you can convert that property from a subject property to a live listing. That means you don't have to re-enter the information under listing maintenance. You can just treat your subject properties under CMA as your unpublished and partial listings, and then make them live in the system when you're ready. So I'll be showing you how to do that towards the end of this afternoon's webinar. You also have the ability to upload up to 15 of your own documents. And I'll be telling you throughout the webinar, instances that you might want to upload some additional information to your CMAs. And when you add that information under your preferences, it becomes available for every CMA that you put together. You can also create, save adjustments in your preferences, and then the system can auto calculate those adjustments, meaning the system will do the math for you. And of course, you can set some preferences in your CMA preference wizard to make the whole process of putting together a full CMA presentation even easier and faster for you. I want to take a moment and just kind of show you an example of the end product that we're working towards. So I have a CMA already put together. This is an older one, and you might note that it is a whopping 53 pages long. Now, your CMA is not going to need to be that long. I'm just showing you all the different options you have. So of course, that creates a fairly lengthy CMA product. You have your cover page, and I'll show you where you can set your settings and preferences so that you can always easily access the information you typically want to use for your cover page, but you'll also be able to choose different options for other CMAs. Notice as I'm going through these pages, if it's a page that is created in the CMA product in Paragon Professional, you can also choose to have a little tagline with your photo and your office logo at the bottom. That's kind of a nice feature, and you'll notice that I've got not only my photo and my office logo, but a little tagline. Best agent equals best results. So just another little marketing that you can add to your CMA. And this can also be set in preferences, so it's added to every CMA that you do. You've got your cover page that you can have up to 3 different cover letters for your sellers. Once again, you're going to be setting that information in your preferences, and then you're going to be able to access that saved template and then upload information about that specific seller and that specific property with the bulk already of the work being done because you have already set that in your CMA preference wizard cover letter template. Let's see, whoops, let's go through, let's move forward. You're going to have a number of uneditable PDFs that you can choose to include or not include in your CMA preferences. And then also in your preferences, you can move around where these documents fall within your CMA presentation. So we'll scroll through some of those. You also have the ability to input your resume in the CMA wizard. However, since most people have that that resume document already somewhere on their computer, you're probably going to find that it's faster and easier to use one of your 15 uploads to upload your resume into your CMA preference wizard, and then that way it will just be available for every CMA that you do. You're going to be able to have a subject property detail page, and you have 2 different options to choose from. And the more information you include on your subject property, the more filled out this page will look, and the better it is for your overall CMA presentation. You also can upload up to 15 documents, and one of those documents that I've chosen to upload is the property information report from CRS. CRS is the public record document, public record database that's integrated into the Paragon MLS software, and it's also its very own database. So you can go into CRS and pull information about that subject property, and then you can always download that and upload it into your CMA. So that's what I've done here. So that's about a 4-page document. You also have the ability to do 2 different CMA, quick CMA options in CRS. So this is an example of one of those, and I have also uploaded it into my full CMA presentation. So it's like a little mini CMA within a larger CMA. Once we get through that, yet another quick CMA option is available to you. You have 2 of those options in CRS. You also have another quick CMA option in Paragon Connect, and that is Easy CMA. So this is just an older example of what that Easy CMA in Paragon Connect looks like. And if you have shared that, you might want to also upload that into your CMA full presentation, but there would be no need to upload both of those. Now we're back into that information that's coming from that full CMA product in Paragon Connect and Paragon Professional, and I know that because I've got my little tagline here at the bottom. These are the comps that I pulled in Paragon Professional, and I am choosing here the horizontal view. The horizontal view shows my public remarks. So if you'd like your public remarks to show in the comps, you're going to want to choose that horizontal view, and you can choose to have your subject property on each page of those comps or not. Also notice that if you make any adjustments on the property, they're also included in that horizontal view. Now, the other option you have is that more familiar vertical view. So this is not conducive to those public record remarks, public public remarks. But if you want to kind of see the comps in this format with either the subject property on every page or just the first page, you're able to make that selection. And this is the vertical report view. Notice you still see any of those adjustments you make for those comps at the bottom of each view of the properties. So we have a couple of pages of that. You're always going to have your CMA summary report, and this is going to be based on the different classes of properties that you've chosen to use as comps. You're going to have your comparable property statistics. You can play around with the colors of the bars on this graph, and then you've got information on those closed properties. That's awesome to share with your potential sellers. Now, if you make any adjustments on your comps, you're going to also have the option to have that summary of adjustments page. So not only will those adjustments show on both your vertical report and your horizontal report, but it also has a dedicated page that you can include or not include with your CMA. And then really this is the goal of the whole project, to get to that comparable market analysis page and kind of see that suggested price to market the property, or you can also have a price range there. As we continue to go through, you're going to see more of those uneditable PDFs that you can choose to include or not include with your presentation. And then you're going to get down to some more marketing pieces that I added. If you have some marketing that your company does for each of those new listings, this would be a great reason to upload that as one of your 15 uploads into your CMAs. And once again, you would want to do that in the wizard so that it is available or in your preferences, so it's available for every CMA you do, versus that example of the CRS, easy CMA that was done. That's something that is specific to an individual CMA report. So we'll be talking all about that once we get into the system. And then finally, you're going to have some company info that you cannot edit. And then your final comments. Once again, you're going to want to do these in your preferences. Not going to have it be nearly as cheesy as my example, but you're going to have all those benefits of listing with you and your company. It's going to be that boilerplate template information. You're going to put that in your preferences, and then you're going to be able to add to that information for the specific seller that you're doing that CMA for. And that's going to wrap up that sample CMA. We're going to go back into our Prime MLS dashboard. This is where you have access to both Paragon Professional and Paragon Connect. We're going to be in Paragon Professional. That is that older view of the Paragon MLS database. Anytime you're using Paragon Professional, make sure you're using Chrome as your browser and you're on a larger screen like a PC or a laptop. Have a question about using the same CE credits twice to renew the license. Any license renewal questions really needs to go to your state real estate association here in New Hampshire. That would be the New Hampshire OPLC. But I can tell you that the answer to that question is very likely no. You need to be using different classes with different course numbers for your renewal cycle. So if you used it for your past renewal cycle and you're in a new cycle, yes, you'd be able to use that class again. But if you've tried to use this class twice for one renewal, I do believe that that will not be allowed. In addition to being able to jump into the Paragon MLS software, you also have access into CRS, but we're going to be accessing CRS from inside of Paragon. And you also have access to other member benefits and tools. So you're going to be getting information about that subject property that you're doing a CMA for from a number of different sources. You're probably going to talk to the seller on the phone when you're scheduling that appointment, but you're going to be able to use CRS to pull up some public record information. You're also going to be able to use real reports to get public record information. And if you're a Realtor member, you have access to RPR, and that's another source for public record information. And if you want an overview of all these different member benefits and tools that you have available with your Prime MLS subscription, one of the best places to see that is on your Prime MLS Help Desk. You're going to be able to see access to your help desk in two different places here on your Prime MLS dashboard. Clicking either one of those access points takes you here to your Prime MLS Help Desk. And this is where you can get answers to your questions 24/7. So, a great place to overview the information about your Prime MLS benefits and tools is behind that Prime MLS benefits and tools tab. So, if you come right to that section, you can click on that link, and now you've got that overview of all the different benefits and tools that you have available to you as a Prime MLS customer and what those options will do for you. You also have the ability to review previously recorded webinars here on your Prime MLS Help Desk. So if you're back on your home page, you can just scroll down until you see that recorded webinars section. Go ahead and click on that section, click Paragon recorded webinars, and there is a previously recorded CMA overview recorded webinar for you to view at your leisure. So our classes are not designed to have you follow along on your device. It's really to kind of soak up the information, knowing that you can come back to your help desk and watch a previously recorded session if you need a reminder on how to do something in the system when you're putting together that full CMA presentation. So you can come right back here and review the information. And I also forgot to point out that under your member benefits and tools section, you also have a quick video that's going to highlight those two different quick CMA options in CRS so you can see kind of the similarities and the differences between those two options for you in CRS. With that, let's go ahead and jump into Paragon Professional and get started with our CMA presentation. So in order to start the presentation, we're going to go under that CMA Home tab. And when we click on that, this is where we're able to create a new presentation, review our saved presentations, and jump into our CMA Preference Wizard. We can also go over to Preferences, and under System, I can jump into that CMA Preference Wizard, and I also can access the CMA Preference Wizard components under Preferences CMA. Remember, coming into your preferences and going through that CMA Preference Wizard is going to help you set some defaults to make this whole process easier and faster for you. So if you do a little work on the front end, it's going to make it easier to put together that whole presentation. As we go back to that CMA tab, you also have access to jump right into that Easy CMA that is a product of Paragon Connect. And remember, you can also access Paragon Connect back on your Prime MLS dashboard. You also have easy access here in your Paragon Professional main menu options to jump into Paragon Connect from here as well. As we go back under CMA one more time, notice I can start adding my subject property. And I always let you know that this is a good idea when you have a few minutes to come in here and start working on that CMA subject property. Putting together the information on your subject property and gathering your comps are really the bulk of the work, particularly if you've gone through your preferences and made all those settings. It's really going to make everything so much easier for you. So as you have a few minutes here and there, go ahead, add that CMA subject property in whatever class it is, and then keep coming back to maintain that subject property, adding more and more information to it, knowing that it's going to make that cover page, be more impressive. So we're going to go ahead and start the process with create subject, create presentation. And I'll show you that if you are pulling together information on that subject property before you do your full presentation, how you're able to pull it into this full presentation. Now, notice you have a couple of ways to navigate this section. It is calling itself a CMA wizard, but that is different from your preference wizard. This is a wizard in terms of it just walks you through that process. You can either use the steps in your left side navigation column, or you can use that green next button in the kind of top right corner. I typically use that next button until I get down to the page layout section, and then I start using my left navigation tab. But it's really up to you how you want to move through this information. The first few steps are quite easy. You want to start with the name of your presentation. You can see I typically name mine the same thing every time. I use the subject property address, and then I put the owner's last name in the name of the presentation as well. I always try to remember each section as I'm going through to save that in this top corner. So I get that little green pop-up letting me know it's been saved, and then I can move on to the next section. And that way I know I just don't lose any of my information in case I get called away from my computer and the session times out. Notice I'm going to see that session timer in the bottom left corner. And if it ever starts getting down into those single digits, you can always just click on the home page, hit refresh. That's going to refresh that session timer for you. And then you can just click on the CMA tab and you're right back in to continuing with your presentation. Now, if you've been working on that CMA subject property and you wanted to load it into your presentation, this is where you can do that. We're going to go in and create that subject property from scratch. I don't recommend using the existing MLS number here because you're not going to be able to edit those details if you pull that information here. But I'll show you another place that you can pull in an existing MLS number and have editing detail capabilities there. So we're going to create new subject property. Our subject property is going to be a residential listing. And if I was pulling in a MLS number, or if I had a partial MLS number, I can make those selections here, put that in, and when I hit save, it's going to pull that information into my CMA subject property, and I'll be able to edit it. Remember, if you're adding that temporary, partial, unpublished listing, there always needs to be a negative in front of that number for the information to pull in. Now I'm kind of looking at a blank template here, and I hate starting with all these fields that need information in them. So I'm going to take advantage of that CRS tax autofill that pulls in some public record information about my subject property, and it's going to autofill that information into my subject property template, thus making it a little bit easier for me to get some information here in the system. So I'm going to click on the state that the property is in, and then anytime I'm using CRS, it is always very county specific. So I'll be putting in the county, and then I can search either by the street name or the owner's last name. I typically search by street name, so I'm going to put in Boxwood. And if you were doing a CMA for a detached condo, and all those detached condos are on the same street, they all have the same street number, and they're just differentiated by unit numbers. Keep in mind that the maximum amount of results you'll ever see in CRS tax autofill is 30. So if I were to search here, I'm going to see a maximum of 30 properties. But I can always narrow that down. Now, in my example with that detached condo, if there are more than 30 units, in that case, I would definitely use that owner's last name and then narrow down that search by putting in the city. because I want to make sure I find that property that I'm looking for. And if it's a detached condo, I'm not able to search by unit number here. So in that very specific example, you might want to use the owner's last name, narrow down those 30 results by putting in the city. I'm going to go ahead and stick with that street name, and I'm going to narrow down results by putting in the street number. And now instead of looking through 30 options, I only have to look through 3. So when I click search, I'm going to see those 3 options. And the reason I have 3 options is because in Hillsborough County, there are 3 properties with 4 boxwood in their address. I'm looking for that property in Milford, so I'm going to make that selection. I'm going to click autofill, and here is the public record information that now can be saved and is going to be added to my subject property details. So if I collapse that listing information and open up location, you can see some of those required fields, although there are very few required fields when I'm inputting a subject property. I still see all those little R's, but it's not really required until I take this subject property and make it a live listing. The one thing that is required when the property is a residential listing is for me to select what the property type is, because I could be putting in a single family, a mobile, or a condo under residential. So I'm just going to pop in that this is indeed a single family. And then I'm going to maybe take into account some information that I pull in from real reports or talking to the owner of the property. Maybe I did a drive-by to get some more information. And if I wanted to go into CRS and see the additional information that's available, I have that option right here in Paragon Professional. When I go up to tax, I can jump into CRS data, and that is going to open up CRS on another browser tab. And because this is a property that I often go into, I have saved it, but you can always search for that property by putting in the county. So we'll leave Hillsborough selected there and then just start typing out the address. And then the property I'm looking for is easily found with that power search option here in CRS. Now, this is that CRS property report, and it has so much information on it. So you're going to want to come here and at least make sure you're talking with the owner of the property. You're going to see that information, school information, sales history. What you see on your CRS property report will vary from state to state, city to city, county to county, because it's just pulling in all the different public record information pieces and putting it in this one concise property report for you. You're going to see information about the property itself. You're also going to be able to see flood zone information, and you have a clickable link that will take you right to FEMA. And then you can also get Paragon information here in CRS. Notice you have these clickable MLS links that let you know the last time this property was in the MLS. Another good way for you to come in and gather some more information about that property. You've got that agent full listing sheet here. So use this information to start putting all that information on your subject property. And while we're here, let me show you how you can do those quick CMAs and CRS. Right now we're on that property report, but if I click over to comparables, I have those 2 options. You saw in our example that more full, more editable CMA and client report option. I'm just going to do that quick CMA, and it truly lives up to its name. One click and I have a shareable report. I'm going to see my subject property. I'm going to get some information on how the system came to these numbers. All I have to do is open up that market value calculation section, and it gives me those details. If I wanted to add any adjustments to the property here in CRS, I can add up to 3. And then as I scroll down, generally we see better information there. Why is this not showing for me? Maybe it's just slowly loading, but that's typically information about the subject property. And then we have our map here. The S lets me know that's my subject property. And then as I kind of zoom out, I can see the comps that the system pulled for me. I can also see some information and how the system chose those comps. And this section is editable. We'll come back to that. As I continue to scroll down, I see my list of comps. I can see I have 7 properties. If I have multiple pages, I'll see that here. And I can look at the property details for the comps that the system pulled, either by clicking on the address, and I'm seeing CRS information open up in a new browser tab for me. So I'm seeing that property report there. Or I can close that out and I can get that Paragon information. So if I hover over that little sold tag, once again, it gives me that clickable MLS number. And now I'm seeing that Paragon information here in CRS. I can also look at the information about each property from the column headers, and I can rearrange this. So if it's important to know if there's a basement, I can click, hold, and drag and move that. And I can even change these fields in my settings. So you can go up into settings, and then if you go into your comparable results list, this is where you're able to choose the 14 columns you want. And then once again, you can click, hold, and drag, rearrange them here, and then either save or reset to that default that the system has set. With that, I will be able to go back to my previous page, and that puts me right back in that quick CMA that CRS pulled for me. If any of these properties don't work, I could always select it, and then I can remove the checked options, or I can keep all the property that's checked. And if I ever remove something and I want to add it back, I'm always going to have that option. Now we have 7 comps. Usually that's pretty good. But if I wanted to add to my comps, I could always increase the distance here. So it makes sense. The further away I go from my subject property, the more comps I may have. I'm going to increase that by about a half a mile. Hit submit, and we'll scroll down and we'll see that a few more properties have been added. Now I have 14. Maybe I decide going out 12 months is a little bit too far out. Typically, I like to do about 6 months. That kind of is a CMA average. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And now we have changed those comps that we see here once again, and we have 9. And maybe I decide this one and this one are not good comps. So we're going to go ahead and remove these. And once I am happy with that, I can always share this easy CMA from CRS by email. I can download it or I can print it out. So that's just a quick overview of one of those 2 options of those easy CMAs here in CRS. From all of this information, I can go ahead and go right back into my Paragon tab and start putting in more information about my subject property. So it is definitely not a condo or a mobile home. I can go down. Let's go into this location section, see if there's anything I want to add there. I think that's all good. I might want to put in school information. So if you know that, that's the Milford's School District. So I can go ahead and put that in there. And then I could always include all the different schools in Milford. I can also go into structure. This is where it's going to be really good to have as much information as possible about that comp. I know it's not new construction, it's existing, and that year pulled over from the public record information pulled in from CRS. I actually know the color is brown, and the architectural style is contemporary, and it is a tri-level. So we can go ahead and put that in. And I know it's actually 3 stories. So we'll do that. I think the finished area above ground is 1600, so we can add that. And then there's some unfinished space in the basement, and maybe I found this via public records. let's see, below grade finished area, about 400. So we're just putting in as much information as we know. We know there's a basement because yes, there's a partially finished and the access is walk up. And we're going to make sure we note partially finished. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and include, yes, there's a garage and it's a 1-car capacity. So you would keep going through all your subject property details and putting in as much information as you know about the property until you're ready to save that subject property. Now, once I do that, it takes me right back into my CMA wizard, and this is where I can add a photo. So maybe I drove by, took a quick photo, uploaded that photo to my computer. So I can go up to add edit photo and I can pull this in from wherever I have my photos stored on my computer. So we'll go to add file. We'll let that pop up. I've got some photos under CMA and we'll do that front view, start upload, and that's going to populate in there. Does look like you can add multiple photos, but you can really only add that one cover page photo here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close, and now that populates for me. This is my option with the smaller photo and map. You also have an additional view if you just want to do that one larger photo, but this is something that I set in my preferences, but I can always change here if I want to. So once again, I'm going to save the information, click next. And with that, that's going to get me to my client information. This shows in a couple of different places. So if you need to create that new client, you can do that here. Or if your client is already in your contacts list, you can pull them in from here. So Dave is in my contact list. That's going to pull up some of that information. And then I can always edit the information here and click to get more options. Because this shows in multiple places throughout your CMA, once again, you want to put in as much information as possible. And this is just the same thing that you see when you have a contact in the collaboration center. So you can make sure you include that home address because it does populate not only on the cover page, but also on the cover letter. I'm going to go ahead and click next from here. And with that, I am done with this first section. And now we're going to go into getting those comparables. So I'm going to add those comparables. If you have a list of MLS numbers and you want to add them that way, you can do that. If you've been saving comparables into a listing cart, you can pull those comparables in from the listing cart here. And if we need to start the whole thing from scratch, we can do that as well. So I'm going to click on residential, and now I'm on my residential search template. One of the reasons you want to put in as much information as possible about your subject property is because you are able to come back in here and review that information to help you find good comps. Now, I think one of the best ways to find good comps is to do a map-based search, and I like to have different statuses. As a listing agent, you're going to be finding your own, unique style of putting together a CMA, where you collect that information from, how you present the information. So I'm just going to give you, some examples of ways you can do it, but ultimately it's going to be up to you to decide what information you want to share with that seller. So because I like to make sure I'm seeing all single families the same as my subject property, and then I want to see active, I want to see all my pending listings, and active under contract. So that's all under contract. And then, of course, I want to see those closed listings. The reason why I like to see the different statuses is because active is going to be their competition. All the pending properties are properties that buyers have chosen. So it's good to know what features they're looking for. And then, of course, the closed properties are our goal. That's where we want to get this potential seller. So as soon as I put in that closed status date, I want to go down to my date ranges and I want to kind of narrow down what I see so that I'm not seeing the whole history of the MLS on my map-based search. So I'm going to go under date range and I'm going to once again just go back 6 months. And then from here, to do that map-based search, I can just click on that mapping option, and that's going to take me right into my map. And then I can put my subject properties address in that search field. So we want to go back to 4 Boxwood. I've typed this in a few times, so it populates for me and I can select it. And when I hit enter, that's going to put my map right on my subject property here. So now I want to collect information about properties that are active, under contract, and sold in the area of the subject property. And to do that, I want to draw on the map. I can have up to 7 shapes, but you probably only need to draw a couple here to start collecting those comps. And looking at the area around my subject property, it makes sense. I'm going to use that rectangular square options. I'm going to click where I want to start that, and then just use my cursor to pull out and encompass the whole area that I want to pull those comps in. As soon as I click on my mouse, it starts putting that information here. If you see a circle with a number in it, that just means I'm zoomed out too much and the properties are really close, or this property is being marketed in more than one class. So it's listed in the MLS twice. I'm going to go ahead and pull back out. And I happen to know that there are some other properties very similar to my subject property in this area of Milford. So I want to capture this area as well. I can go back to draw. Polygon's going to be my least restrictive shape. And I can just, once again, use my cursor and my mouse, clicking on my mouse when I want to turn that line that I'm drawing on the map, and I can encompass that area. As soon as I close that shape up, I pull in a few more properties, and maybe there are also some similar properties here. So let's go ahead and put them in just so we have a few to choose from. We'll go ahead and use that rubber band option and kind of make that long rectangular shape to encompass all of Prospect Street. And now we've got a couple of more properties. I can see the status of the property based on the flag. So anything that is purple is under contract. Anything that is blue is closed. And if there were any green flags, those would be my active properties. And you also have that little option to see what all those flags mean here under that little comb option. Now from here, I can start adding these properties. Let me click off there into my CMA. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that search. And that's going to bring me back into my CMA wizard. And now those 13 properties that were on the map are here for me to review. I can always go behind that MLS number. I can look through those photos. I can look at the information here, but you've also got some information behind your little plug icon. So much great information. I actually like to click, hold, and drag and bring that over. And then when I click on that plug icon, I like to use the quick view because it keeps my spreadsheet in the background, but allows me to review all the information and decide if this is a good comp or not. So I'm going to say this one isn't going to be a good comp, but I'm going to go down and I'm going to select some of the other ones that do work. We'll click this one here. We'll skip that one. We'll click this one. And let's see, maybe this one too. Of course, this one, and that's good. So now the ones that I have selected, these are the ones I've decided I want to use. I could, if I wanted to add all of these, click add to CMA and it would add all of them if I select all. If I only select some, it's only going to only add the ones I've selected, and you are maxed out with 25 properties. So if you had 26 properties here and you didn't select anything, or you select all and you said add to CMA, it's only going to add the first 25. So I've made my selections. I'm going to go ahead and add. You can see I've added 8, not all 13. And this is where you can see that you're maxed out at 25. So I am going to use those selections. And now I'm back in my wizard. Now I can start to organize this information because notice I've got some active under contracts kind of mixed in with my closed. So I can click on that and I can use use that move up arrow, and that kind of organizes the information, based on status, just so it will look better. If I wanted to go back into the system and add more comps, I could always do that. But I am happy with these comps. So I'm going to go ahead, hit save, just so that I don't lose this section that I've already pulled together for my best comps. I get my little green pop-up, and now I can go to next. Now, this is where I can make adjustments. If you have found comps that are just really near perfect matches to your subject property, you're not going to make any adjustments. But generally, you need to sometimes make adjustments. And I've set a few in my preferences. So I always have the option to adjust by number of baths, number of full baths, half baths, and three-quarter baths. And I also gave these some very made up values. If you don't know what the market value for those kinds of features for a property in your market area, talk to your fellow agents, the broker of your office, or if you have an appraiser that you can reach out to, they really are the keeper of that knowledge. Do not do like I just did and make a number up from your head. Now, these are the ones that I've set in my preferences to always show, but if I wanted to add something, I can do that. These are all the potential things that I can make adjustments for. And I know that sometimes I need to make an adjustment based on garage, right? So I'm going to select garage by finding it in that field, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that. Suzanne, shouldn't be a problem so long as you didn't miss more than 5 minutes while you were getting back online. Now, when I add that garage, once again, I have to give it a value, and I'll just say a single family garage is worth about $5,000. And then maybe I also need to adjust for number of bedrooms. So if there's an additional bedroom, I can also just double click, and that's going to add that here. And maybe I would give that a $2,000 value. Remember, I'm making these up. You're going to get real numbers, either from your knowledge of the market, or you'll reach out to fellow agents, broker of your office, appraisers. So from here, I'm happy with these comps. I'm going to once again go ahead and save so I don't lose any information. And then I'm ready to go to the next step. And this is where it's going to have my subject property and those 7 comps that I pulled. Now, this is where I can tell the system to do that math for me. I just want to go up to Calc Adjust, and the system is going to take those adjustments that I gave values, and now it's going to put it in for each of the comps. Sometimes there's a negative in front of that number. And if the comparable has something the subject property doesn't have, it is going to be subtracting that from the value. If the subject property has something the comparable doesn't have, it will be adding to that. And as I go through those comps, you're able to see where that information has been added. Now, sometimes you need to make adjustments for things that are a little more intangible than bedrooms, bathrooms, or garages, right? Maybe a view or location or high-end upgrades. You can also do that here, and that would be under manual adjustments. You can also save some of those manual adjustments and attach values in your preferences, once again, to make this easier for you. So if I click manual adjustment, I need to type in what I'm adjusting for. And if I say view, I do believe that is something I have saved. Indeed it is. And it gives it a $1 million value. Now, if I want to make sure it's on all of the comps, I can copy that intangible view throughout or backwards. So I want to make sure that it's copied, and now I can see that it is adding that view that my subject property has that nobody else can get close to each of those properties. Once again, very made up numbers. So make sure you're using numbers that would jive with your local appraisers. Now from here, you have done everything you need to do with adjustments. You just need to save and hit next. It takes you to the next section. And all of this can already be done in your preferences. So if you always like this traditional view, you can have that set so it's always going to be available for you. But if you wanted to do something different, maybe with this property, because it's a contemporary, I want to use that modern. And I'm going to even be able to preview the information to show it with the information I have added for this CMA. So instead of using what I set in my preferences for this one, I'm going to change it. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, click next. That's going to take me to where I can add that footer. If you haven't added a footer, this is what your footer is going to look like. You're going to want to save the CMA you're working on, go into your preference and add your footer there once again, so it will be available on all the CMAs you put together. So you can add that tagline, you can add photos, you can decide, how you want it to look on the page. You do all of this once again in preferences, so it's available for every CMA. We'll click next, nothing to do with that disclaimer, and we are in the home stretch of wrapping up this presentation. Once again, all your presentation set up, I am now jumping over to my left side navigation, and this is where I have different pages selected because I made those selections in my preferences, and I am able to always select or unselect, also click, hold, and drag to rearrange something if I want to move it around for this specific preference CMA. So maybe I wanted to move that up a little bit. And if I want to add some information specific for this CMA, like maybe that CRS property report, this is where I can do that here. So I'm going to upload that document, going to pull it in from wherever I have it saved. So let's choose that file. Should be under my CMA section again, I think. Let's go back to documents. Oh, there it is. Let's just pull it up right from there. And then I can always say what it is. It is our CRS property report. And now I'm just going to hit save. It's always going to be added to the very bottom of this list. I don't want it to be my last page of my CMA. So once again, I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and I'm going to bring this up here. I'm right below my subject property. Ooh, I might have let go a little too soon. Let's try that again. Click, hold, and whoops. Come on, cursor. Click, hold, and drag. And let go. And there it goes. Now it's placed exactly where I want it to be. Now I can go through each one of these sections and review the information. Some of these I can go in and customize, and I'll show you where you can also set those customizations in preferences so they are available for every CMA. But if you need to do something specific for one, you always have that option here as well. Now, if I am satisfied with this information, once again, I'm just going to save so I don't lose any of those customizations I just made, like moving up that CRS property report earlier into my pages on the CMA. Did it save? Did I get that little green pop up? There we go. And now I'm down to my last section, which is to generate my CMA. I'm going to go ahead and start that. And while we are generating that CMA, I am going to go back to CRS, and we're going to go under maintain subject property, because we're going to imagine I have already presented this CMA to my seller. He's so impressed with all the information I had and my knowledge of the market area that he, of course, wants to list with me. So as I go back to my office, I'm going to make sure that I can pull up my subject property that I just put in information, and that's this 4-boxwood circle subject property. And from here, when I pull that up under that subject property number, once I have all the required fields, This is where I can convert it to a live listing. So this is a huge time saver. Now I'm going to get some errors because I have required fields that I haven't, put information in. But luckily the system's going to walk me right through those 43 fields. I'm going to put that information in there. And then once I'm finally done, I'm going to go ahead and convert again, and I'm going to get one more pop-up, and that pop-up is going to give me the ability to put in some information that I can't change here. And that is the status. We want that to be active. Or if it's not going to be ready for showings within 10 days of adding it into the system, I can make the status coming soon, put that date within 10 days of this date that I'm listing it in. And then on that date, it will automatically go to active, and then showings can begin. Using that coming soon statuses allows me to start marketing the property, and that satisfies that clear cooperation policy requirement. And that puts that property in the MLS for other agents to see. If you want more information on clear cooperation policy and coming soon, we have all of that for you on your help desk. Roger is saying, how do we change the values of comp calculations in adjustments? You're going to be setting those. So Roger, you're going to be determining what those are. And if you need to change them for an individual property, you can click in that field and make those changes, or you can change them in your preferences settings. So once you put in that status, and then you're also going to select, put in that MLS list date and that expiration date. Those are the only 3 fields you can't change when you're converting that listing. You get that final pop-up to do that. And once you satisfy those requirements, then you're going to be able to say, yes, save this as a live listing, and you are going to get a pop up with the MLS number, and that's how you know it's now active in the system. So defaults can be set in preferences. Absolutely. You can set your defaults in preferences to make it be faster for you, or you can do what I just did. When I was doing those adjustments, I was adding in those values. And if you ever need to go back and change them, I'll do that when we go back to that generated CMA. So once you want to make a subject property a live listing, take advantage of doing that from here, not adding all the information back in under listings, because that is a waste of time when you have this option to convert your subject properties. Now, when I click back on that subject property that actually, let's go back into CMA. Now my whole CMA has been generated, and I can go through all this information. Obviously, I would want to go to that cover letter page and make some changes here so that the full cover letter appears. And if I wanted to go back in and change some of those adjustments, I should also be able to do that just by going back up to that step and go into those calculated adjustments. So if I go here, I can change these values. And then if I go into adjustments, I could also change that view value. And then if I make any changes anywhere in these sections, all I want to do is generate that presentation so that it shows me that new information. So I can come down, view my presentation, regenerate it as many times as I need to get it to look exactly the way I want to. Now, to make all of this easier for you, make sure you are going up to your preferences. First time, go through your preference wizard. This is going to let you see all of those things that you can set. So you can add that cover letter, and you can have up to 3. You can also add your resume, but once again, I think it's just easier to use that as one of your 15 uploads. And it takes less time to do that. You can go through all this, nothing you can do with company info, but you can choose which subject property view you like best. and just keep going through all this information. It's also showing you some of those pages you can customize. And then once you go through that CMA wizard once, you can also go back into your preferences down to CMA. And this is where you're going to be able to select or unselect the pages that you want to show. And if you want to rearrange these, you can click, hold, and drag. And now you are setting that default for every CMA, and you only need to make the changes when you need to. As you continue to scroll down here, this is where you can upload those documents. They're going to show for every CMA you put together, like that that marketing piece for your office that you want to add in, that resume you want to add in. You can do that here. And once again, this is all for all your CMAs versus that CMA, quick CMA, or that property report for 4 Boxwood Circle that I only want to upload that to my specific CMA for that, because I don't want that information in every CMA I share, only the one for that seller. And then as you can continue to go down, you've got these last 3 sections here. And this also lets you know this is where you can choose your theme, that a cover page that you like best. You can add that footer in here, nothing to do with the disclaimer. This is where you can also set those auto adjustments. So if I scroll down, you can see where you can make those and you can give them the value here. But remember that value for the adjustments, that's going to change, definitely town to town, but even sometimes within different areas of the town, bathrooms and bedrooms have different values. So once again, if you're not sure what those are, reach out to an appraiser and they can help you with those market values for that area you're doing the CMA for. And then once again, that report setup, this gives you an overview of those 4 reports that you can go in and customize. And if you customize them here, you are customizing them for all your CMAs. So if there's certain things that you like to see, go ahead and set it here. Do that work on the front end in your preferences, and then that is going to make putting together those individual CMAs so much easier for you. Also like to point out, once you have your CMA generated, you can share that multiple ways. So I'm just going back to that CMA tab, and this is where I can email out that CMA presentation. I could also download it and share it that way. And of course, I can also print the presentation as well. I am happy to stick around and answer any questions you may have. Remember, this is your full CMA product here in Paragon Connect, but you do have some quick options. You can do those 2 quick CMAs in CRS. You also have Easy CMA in Paragon Professional, and you can get more information about that on your Prime MLS Help Desk. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I do see Roger has another question. If you don't have any questions, feel free to log off. I'll get your affidavits out to you early next week, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a terrific weekend.